risked their lives this afternoon and apprehended the shooter. And we do know, as we've been saying now within the last 30 minutes or so, that that shooter not just apprehended but neutralized, and we are hearing, at least so far, that that shooter is dead.
So resetting here, it's 4:20 in the afternoon. I know some people tuning in expecting to see Judge Judy, but we are continuing our coverage here of the shooting situation in Aurora, Illinois. We know that one person is dead, and whether that is the shooter, because we know the shooter is dead as well, that will be answered for us in the next 10 minutes or so.
Yes, we are hopefully going to be hearing from the Aurora police chief. We received an email saying that he would be speaking to us in a news conference within the hour, somewhere between 4:30 and 5 o'clock, and at which time we'll be able to ask a lot of questions and find out perhaps the status of the civilians involved, more information on the officers that we're hearing are in stable condition, and also any details, if at all possible right now, on the shooter and his motive.
And certainly when we first heard this, your mind goes there. You think, oh gosh, all these people have been shot. I wonder how many fatalities are going to be so far. We only know of one. And if it is indeed the shooter, that would certainly be some good news. This is not a good news day at all. That would certainly be some good news, because that would seem to indicate that some of the other people on the scene, the police officers, some of the other workers, may have just received injuries during that shooting. And we're going to find out again more about that in the coming minutes. So we're talking about it, we're thinking about it, we're trying to piece together a lot of this information. Everything you're hearing is coming from a little bit over here, a little bit over here, but we're hoping to get to the police chief to get it from right here, the official word.
Yes, and as we are resetting here, just to take you back to about 2.5 hours ago when the first calls came out from Aurora Police saying that there was an active shooter situation. From there, we started to get more details about the fact that this was happening at the Henry Pratt building there in Aurora. That's at South Highland Avenue. And so many buildings, so many schools, other companies in the area were placed on soft or hard lockdowns, told to stay in place while they tried to apprehend this shooter. And then just within the last hours, when we were beginning to learn that a shooter had been apprehended, and now that the shooter is believed to be dead.
That's right. So this is all information that we're giving to you, and I know sometimes you hear us give facts and then you hear something a little bit different later. But we're trying to piece all of this together. We're trying to go with the most accurate sources, primarily law enforcement, and first and foremost, to make sure that we're giving you the information that you need, that it's accurate, and that it's timely as well. And there's the front of the Henry Pratt Company right there. So we said 500 employees work there. We also know they have a facility in Hammond, Indiana, and we oftentimes know that people aren't at work all at the same time. So it will be interesting. One of the things interesting to know, how many people were in there at the time, how many people heard what was going on and locked themselves in an office or hid because they were scared that they might be the next victim.
And the Henry Pratt Company is a valve manufacturing company there. So just to give you a little background on it, as you were mentioning, they have this location and another one in Hammond. And we see Dana Kozlov stepping into the image here. This is her camera right in front of the company and it looks like we have sound coming in from Dana now. So Dana, if you can hear us, I know you're right in front of the building there. What's going on around you?
Well, yeah, it appears at least to me to be the main administrative building. And as I was saying when I was on the phone earlier, you can see in that window on the second floor there are some employees inside. They have been looking out of the window and just kind of watching now for about the past, well, now he's waving, about the past hour or so. Nobody has come in or out. If you look down the street, Scott, to your right, there is one police vehicle still blocking the area to that, what looks like that business park there with the tape up. But if Scott...
Good afternoon. This is Channel One America breaking news. We have a situation that's developed this afternoon in Aurora, Illinois, a suburb outside of Chicago, where there was an active shooter situation earlier, but now the suspect is dead. However, in the process of this business shooting that occurred at this business there on the outskirts of Chicago, apparently it resulted in 4 police officers being injured, and also we're finding out that we have multiple others that have been injured in this business as well. And also we're finding out that We have one death. The suspect is confirmed dead, according to reports from the scene there. There is a news conference coming up here shortly, and we hope to bring that to you live here in the coming minutes. Again, this is Channel 1 America's continuing coverage of breaking news, a shooting situation where multiple people have been shot at a business this afternoon in a suburb in the outskirts of Chicago in Illinois, and we understand that the suspect is dead, but multiple people have been shot and have been taken to local hospitals. And we are also going to have a news conference here shortly. Let's go back to local affiliate WBBM in Illinois.
It's clear we owe a debt of gratitude to law.
And we're having a few technical difficulties here. Hopefully our signal will come back shortly from our feed from CBS that is broadcasting WBBM in Chicago.
We will go right to her. And just to let you know what we're here on, but as soon as they are set and we can ask them questions, we will be right there to do that.
That's right. And, oh no, here's this person. Why was that person somebody that was to be...
Okay, we seem to be having obviously some difficulty with the feed from...
There is no longer any danger to the community.
Yes, and that image on your right, you could see there was a sign there that was a business park. So multiple businesses in this area, not just the Henry Pratt Company, but also Alro Steel, which we were hearing was on a lockdown earlier. So that is the Shetland Business Park. So you can see the yellow tape is up, officers still on the scene. This appears to be at least part of the perimeter that they're still containing, or at least still watching at this point. And to the left of your screen, you're looking at an area where we will be having the press conference. So as that starts to get set up, you'll see more fellow journalists coming into this room, and eventually representatives from the Aurora Police Department will address the media.
So that's the situation here as we almost approach 3 hours since the shooting began at Henry Pratt in Aurora, and since all areas around Henry Pratt went on lockdown, some soft, some hard lockdowns based on the proximity to the building that they were. But we know that District 129, SD129.org, has information. If you're going to pick up your child, a lot of people have already done it. I know they were staggering some of the departures for the various schools because it's a rather large school district, and they were making sure that all the kids were able to get home safely, to get back with their parents, and to make sure that nothing happened to them. So kudos to the school district for making sure that the kids were safe as we continue our coverage here as we approach to 4:30 here. And Brad Edwards rejoins us from the newsroom. And Brad, you've given us some very important information all afternoon, and I assume you have a little bit more.
Yeah, good afternoon, Rob and Erica. And I want to start off by saying I texted one of my sources just a moment ago. He said it appears, at least from ear witnesses, if you will, people who heard things inside the industrial building and eyewitnesses, that this may have started in an office. The shooting may have started in an office, and then from there, the shooter apparently exited the office and started shooting other employees. Now, I'm going to read from a statement from the Fraternal Order of Police that we just received, so you don't need to stay on me if you don't want to, if there's something better to show. I'm just going to read this, just getting this in my hands. It says, quote, FOP statement on Aurora shooting. Illinois Fraternal Order of Police State Lodge President Chris Southwood issued the following statement regarding the February 15th shooting at the Pratt Company in Aurora that left 4 Aurora police officers and several civilians civilians wounded. The 4 officers are members of Aurora FOP Lodge number 11. Now, a quote here, I believe this is a quote from the Lodge president, quote, "Every police officer dreads days like this one, yet these 4 courageous Aurora officers and their colleagues did not hesitate to literally put their lives on the line today to stop further bloodshed. These 4 heroes willingly ran into harm's way to protect their fellow citizens and very nearly paid the ultimate price. We Illinoisans should be humbly grateful for their service, and we ask you that you join us in praying for the injured civilians and police officers and that they make a full and speedy recovery." End quote. It goes on to say the Fraternal Order of Police was founded in 1915, goes on to give some more facts, including 34,000 active duty and retired police officers from the state of Illinois. But this is quite a bit of information, and now we have indeed confirmed 4 officers wounded, went into harm's way, wounded, and survived this afternoon. Rob and Erica.
Okay, thank you, Brad. As we got more information there on just the extent of the officers and civilians that were involved. Now we want to turn to Dana Kozlov. She is right out there in front of
You're watching Breaking News on Channel 1 America. Good afternoon from the command center here in Atlanta. We're following breaking news out of the suburb of Chicago, station WBBM here via CBS, where there's been an active shooting situation this afternoon there. The suspect has been neutralized according to multiple reports. Suspect is dead. 4 officers were injured. To the best of our knowledge at this moment, we understand that they're not life-threatening injuries to the officers. We're getting reports of up to 16 others have been injured as well as a result of the shooting at a business there in Aurora, Illinois this afternoon. Let's go back to WBBM continuing coverage.
The shooter was in the building at the time.
She said she didn't know. I believe somewhere towards say the meetings today with some union, and she said he feels that they were going after the union guys.
Okay, of course this is unconfirmed at this point. We have no idea. But so you were on the phone with her the whole time. What else was going on? Was she saying, were they telling people to take cover?
They're telling them to take cover. They didn't say anything. They said it's an active shooter and that they were on lockdown and not to leave the building.
But they didn't say to go any specific, just they were on lockdown, don't leave the building.
Yeah, don't leave the building. They're letting them roam around free at one point. She was going to get a phone charger. I told her to make sure she stayed with somebody. I'm like, Mom, stay with somebody. You know, this is a very scary moment.
I saw at one point what looked like a line of people walking up to the second floor like they had been sequestered or hung in it.
Well, right now they got them all on lockdown. They're not. She said she had to go. They wanted them off the phone. They wanted to sit and talk to everybody, and they were going to go through the interview process. They don't know when they're going to let them out. They haven't told us when she's going to be able to go home or anything. So.
Did she say how many shots she heard?
She said that she didn't even count. She didn't even know it was fireworks or shots at one point until someone came running in that said that they're shooting.
And what did you say to her? Were you trying to keep her calm?
Yeah, the whole time. Just relax. That the police will do their job, and just stay calm and we'll pray. And she was talking to people on the phone, and she just kind of, I was just on the phone in limbo the whole time with her. She kept saying, "Well, I'm gonna call you back." I said, "No, don't hang up the phone." And every time the phone got disconnected, I called her back right away.
But she was able to answer.
Yeah, she was on the phone the whole time until probably about 20 minutes ago when they just made everyone go upstairs. She said they told us to get off the phone, they want us to come upstairs, and now we're kind of sitting here like, what's going on?
Did she indicate they wanted them to come upstairs to talk to them one by one, or?
She said they were going to have a meeting.
How long has she worked here?
She's been here about 10 years.
And never any other issues. Is she hearing who I hate to ask this, but who the shooter, not named, don't name, but who the shooter might be? Is it someone they know inside?
Yeah, she knows him.
She does know it.
She knows him. Yeah, she knows his name and knows who it is, and she knows all the details. I don't want to say anything because it's an ongoing investigation, but yeah, they're all aware. They knew inside who it was.
Well, and we don't want to say any names either, of course, at this point. That would not be the right thing to do at this point, but she knows knows him, can you just tell me this person, is it a man and is it a current or former employee?
It's a man and current employee who was going to be terminated soon, and she said she's not surprised.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, but your mother is okay. Do you mind sharing her name with me?
It's Caroline Dress.
But she is okay. You're okay now. Are you going to stay out here until she's...
I'm going to give her a ride home. I'm staying out here until they say we can take your mom home.
And are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay. I mean, now I was quite frantic because you hear about it on social media. I'm scrolling through and, oh, that's my mom's work. So I left work right away and been skirting around in my vehicle till I could get close to take her home. So.
All right, and you said it was Jake.
Yeah.
Jake, thank you for talking with us. I'm glad your mom is okay. And again, no idea when they're going to let them leave.
No idea yet. Waiting for a phone call.
Okay. All right, Jake. Thank you so much. So, I'm not going to reiterate what Jake just said, but it kind of makes sense as to what I've been seeing, that they're not letting employees leave yet. They want to talk to them. Nothing has been confirmed. I want to repeat that, but according to now reports from employees, this shooter was known to them, unconfirmed, but known to them. There may be a motive, but of course police have to work that all out. We're going to try to talk to some more people too, and we'll bring them over if we can. For now, back to you, Rob and Erica.
Okay, Dana Kozlov with Jake Simmons, very insightful there, and again, all unofficial, but they kind of pieced together some of the information. And as you take a look from Chopper 2, this video from earlier today, and it just underscores just how serious this all was. I believe we have Marco Ray Ortega, a witness who's joining us now on the phone. And Marco, if you can hear us, it's Rob Johnson and Erica Sargent at CBS. Tell us where you were, where do you work, what did you see, and how concerned you were for your safety?
Well, I was actually driving past the Pratt building. I was going towards Luigi's Fun Center, which is a pizza place right across from it. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a cop car came flying down the street. Just a single car before any cops had gotten there. Then all of a sudden, just more and more cops, just a huge influx of Aurora Police Department came up. Wasn't really necessarily concerned about my safety more than just kind of getting away from it. Went around the corner to park and just see what was kind of happening. And the police came up to me and asked me to move back a bit. They thought there was an active shooter, and they had me move probably about 40 or 50 yards back from where I was. And then it was just cops, a never-ending stream of police coming into the area. SWAT, state police, all the surrounding cities, police officers, ambulances and whatnot.
Marco, did you hear any of the gunshots, or did you see anyone being taken out of the building?
When I first drove past, I was driving past, I had seen somebody run out of the building. That was right before, maybe like 30 seconds before I saw the first police officer. I didn't see anybody actually being taken out of the building though, no.
Okay. Marco, we appreciate your assistance in helping us piece together this story. Thank you for joining us today on our extended coverage of the Aurora shooting.
Absolutely.
Thank you. And Tara Molina joins us now from Mercy Medical Center in Aurora. She has the very latest for us there. Tara.
We just pulled up here at the hospital, and we do know that at least 2 people are here right now. We aren't sure of their condition. Again, to remind everyone, we know 4 police officers were injured and they're in stable condition, but it's still unclear how many civilians were injured and what conditions they're in. So again, 2 people, we know they're here. Another 2 are at Rush Copley. We were told those 2 are there with non-life-threatening injuries. But I can tell you again, we just got here. When we pulled up right outside the emergency room, it is tight security here right now. There are actually armed law enforcement officers outside, and we were all directed to come out back here. So we're still gathering the very latest here at Mercy Medical Center. Rob and Erica?
All right, thank you, Tara. Now we want to get more witness perspective. Listen to this sound that we got from a couple of witnesses who were there on the scene.
This is quite worrying. It's literally right down the street from home, so it's, yeah. And I have kids at the schools, and the schools are shut down, as we know right now. So, yes.
And so there you hear it. I mean, these witnesses are invaluable to helping us tell this story here today. And you're looking at right now a live picture of the staging area outside of the Henry Pratt Company in Aurora, and we have more witnesses who share their stories. Let's look at those.
When it first started happening, can you just describe what you heard when you saw it?
I kind of heard the shooting, and then like the cars, just like I said, flying by. But yeah, that's pretty much.
Do you think you heard shots from the building?
Kinda, yeah, I kind of heard them. Yeah, because I was sitting down, and since I by myself, I kind of heard.
Can you describe what it sounded like, what you heard?
I just heard like light, really light shooting, but it was like I said, it was really like yeah.
Quick. Do you know how many or like it happened?
No, it would happen quickly. Like I said, it was really quickly. Yeah, I just seen everything happening, cars flying by and everything. So it was really happening really quickly. Yeah.
Again, another witness painting the scene for us. She also said she heard gunshots. We heard from Marco just a few minutes ago saying that he heard what appeared to be gunshots, and also when he first was arriving to a business nearby, a pizzeria, saw someone exiting the building. So this gives us a better idea of what was happening in those first few minutes after the Aurora police realized that something was going on, and then we saw this influx of law enforcement arriving on the scene in a hurry.
Yeah, and I just received a text about the situation at Rush Copley. We thought 2 victims were going there, hearing that perhaps as many as 4 or 5 coming there. But earlier we mentioned that it was all hands on deck at both hospitals, and we can tell you that at Rush Copley at least, that all emergency triage doctors who are not working, so if your shift is over, you can now leave, and the ones that are currently on schedule are working. And what we can glean from that is that they have the situation under control. As for Mercy Hospital, where we should be hearing from authorities, we're expecting to hear from at 4:30. We do not know the same situation exists there, but that would certainly be good news from a patient treatment standpoint at Rush Copley.
Now, as you can imagine, this is getting attention nationwide. The president being briefed on this. We heard from our local senators, Senator Durbin and Duckworth. Also Gabby Giffords, who, as you quite likely remember, survived a horrific mass shooting herself. She has been tweeting about this. Some of our local congresswomen as well, including Lauren Underwood. So definitely a lot of eyes on this, waiting as we are for this press conference to find out the extent of the injuries, including the officers and civilians, and the motive. What drove this man to shoot inside of the Henry Pratt Company building? Now, Dana, from her interview there, the son of a worker was able to glean some new information, and while we're not naming any names, he seemed to find out from his mother that they knew who the shooter was. They were very familiar with him. So just more details that sort of paint this picture of what unfolded today starting just before 2 o'clock.
Yeah, it really will be helpful to hear from the police chief, because that's when we can get all this information that's hanging out here to the right and the left and here and there, and sort of bring it all together. Because Jake Simmons, who interviewed with Dana, did indicate that his mother said, oh yeah, we know who it was. And another witness tells Brad Edwards that when they saw the guy, they're like, uh-oh, here we go. And so it will be very telling to hear what the police chief has to say about why this person walked in to the Henry Pratt Company this afternoon and began opening fire. On the left, you're looking at the staging area right now, where we're expecting to hear from law enforcement at any minute. And on the right, that's the staging area at the Henry Pratt Company for law enforcement, where law enforcement has been gathering all afternoon. Let's listen in as we hear from another witness.
R-I-S-E-N.
Yeah, R-I-S-E-N. Andreessen. And her first name again? I'm sorry.
Monroe, you want?
He's wondering. What is her first name again? I'm sorry. I can only absorb so much information at once with people talking in my...
That was Dana discussing with Jake the spelling of his mother's name, so that was not other witness sound that we expected earlier.
But right here, you might recognize this gentleman on the left here. This is one of our reporters as well, Jeremy Ross. He is right there at the staging area where the media will soon hear from the police chief. So you were hearing Dana, we have Jeremy, Tara, Brad, so many of our reporters bringing in information. And now you can see live here, this is back at the scene near the Henry Pratt Company, where there is still a large police out here as this investigation at this point goes into its second, third hours as they apprehended and neutralized the shooter, and now are trying to gather as much information as possible. And that includes so many of those workers that are still inside that company. We saw them in the windows there, some of them waving, acknowledging our presence as we were acknowledging theirs. So let's go back to our newsroom now, and to investigator Brad Edwards is there. And Brad, any new information you're hearing?
Yeah, we do have some new information we're hearing. So early on this afternoon, I got a name from a source and had been working with that name, and also independently another individual who works here got a name of a potential suspect. Now one of our reporters on the ground has gotten that same name, so we have that name. I called the house of the person in question, this male, and a woman who answered said she's sorry, she can't help me. She sounded disheveled and hung up. It is the person we believe who went to the Pratt Company today, and at some point in time went into a meeting. We don't know if he was terminated at that meeting, if he knew beforehand he was going to be terminated. We believe it's somehow some type of union involvement too. It's most likely a union shop with 500 employees. They are America's largest manufacturer of valves for potable water, wastewater, and power generation and industrial markets. So a manufacturer to the nth degree. But we are now working with a name, and a name that I have heard very early on, and now really a third individual within our news department has came up with that same name, and I called that household, talked to a disheveled woman. Obviously, heart goes out to her too. She hung up, and now we await for these news conferences, and we know, though, as we've talked about, this suspect, the man who started this some 3 hours and 7 minutes ago, is dead, and at the Kane County morgue, we believe. Just getting this in now from the newly elected governor's office, Governor Pritzker. Daily public schedule for Friday, February 15th, 2019. What? Governor Pritzker and law enforcement to hold media availability on Aurora shooting. Where? Aurora Police Department, 1200 East Indian Trail. When? 5:30. So what started off as a 5 o'clock press conference and then moved to a 4:30 press conference will now be a 5:30 press conference some 42 minutes from now. Again, though, we believe we are working with a name of a man who may have started this carnage some 3 hours and 7 minutes ago on this Friday afternoon at the manufacturing building plant in question in Aurora. Back to you guys in the studio.
This is Channel 1 America's continuing coverage of breaking news.
The thing is, when we talked, or Dana Kozlov talked to Jake Simmons, he was saying how everybody was kind of just walking around the building and didn't have really any sense of urgency. And he was saying, Mom, you know, go hide, get out of the way, do whatever. And not until the authorities came in there did they have some sort of semblance of what they needed to be doing, the task at hand. Right now, as we heard, the task at hand is to be interviewed by authorities and telling them exactly what they know and when they knew it. So we know 5:30 press conference at Aurora Police Department, and we know that Jeremy Ross is standing by live there for us right now. Jeremy.
Good afternoon, Rob. Good afternoon, Eric. At the podium behind us, is where everyone is anticipating that additional information to come to light. All eyes over there at this point in time. We are being told Aurora's police chief expected to speak. In addition, Kane County law enforcement also expected to be here, as you mentioned from Brad, confirmed by the police department only moments ago. That news conference now expected to take place at 5:30 this afternoon. So we, of course, will be watching and waiting and expecting those additional important details up until then. So that's the latest here from live inside the Aurora Police Department. Of course, as we get more information, we will pass it along to you.
Okay, Jeremy Ross there at the media staging area at the Aurora Police Department. Thank you.
This is Channel 1 America's continuing coverage of breaking news as we approach the 6 o'clock hour, 5 o'clock in Illinois, where this afternoon there was apparently a workplace shooting there. Began as an active shooting situation at a business there in Aurora, just outside of the Chicago, Illinois area this afternoon, where we found out that 4 police officers initially had been injured. The way we understand it at the moment, those injuries are not life-threatening, but we're continuing to monitor that. And we also understand up to 16 others may have been injured as well as a result of this workplace shooting this afternoon. And they are in local hospitals as well. Obviously, you're still seeing emergency vehicles there at the scene. The scene is obviously calmed down a little bit now because the shooter was shot and killed, according to multiple reports. We're expecting a news conference to happen here now within the next 30 minutes or so, or about 6:30 Eastern Time, 5:30 Central. It's being pushed back, obviously, for obvious reasons. Still a lot going on. They're probably still gathering information, and to give the latest and most accurate information does take a little time to sift through and make sure it's correct before it's presented to the public. So we will have the most accurate information coming up here shortly on what may have initially happened. Obviously, this is going to be an ongoing investigation now. We understand that the police or at least were talking to employees that were there this afternoon. We understand the shift has changed. A new shift has come on now for the evening at this plant here in Illinois, again just outside of Chicago. And so police had been talking to the employees that worked there during this event this afternoon to try to get some eyewitness accounts on what happened there. You see what appears to be, this is from station WBBM in Chicago, police officers standing there in the window as we continue to await a news conference that is now expected to happen at around 6:30 Eastern Time this evening. Again, as far as we know right now, gathering the very latest information coming in from all across the country, and of course there in Illinois, from the most reliable sources, is that the police officers are not in life-threatening condition at this point, as best we know it now. Again, we'll get the latest here momentarily in this press conference from city officials and the police there on the scene. But we do not know the condition at this time, at least, of any of the others that were injured there this afternoon. But we do have one confirmed fatality, according to multiple reports, that the suspect is dead at this hour as a result of this shooting. And again, we're continuing to monitor the very latest on this. We're going to stay with this for a while longer as we continue to await this presser that is coming up here within the next 30 minutes. We hope. It's being pushed back several times, and hopefully we'll be able to get the very latest and most accurate information here momentarily. Again, we're approaching the 6 o'clock hour. This is Channel 1 America's continuing coverage of breaking news live here on YouTube this afternoon. We thank you so much for joining us as we're bringing you the very latest information from our brand new command center here in Atlanta. This is Channel One America, now bringing you live breaking news as it happens anywhere across the country, as much as we can, when we can. And we thank you for joining us this afternoon and evening as we provide this live coverage for you. Again, through CBS, you're watching coverage from WBBM in Chicago.
That street still blocked off, so it gives you more of a perspective of where officers are focusing their efforts here. Of course, this also is another view where they have a staging center, so you can see that very close proximity to the Henry Pratt building. So many law enforcement are still on the scene, and we saw in those windows many of the employees still inside there as they continue to investigate. And speaking earlier to our security analyst Ross Rice, he painted a clear view of how police would and other law enforcement agencies would be tackling this. For this to be such a large plant, even though we were hearing that a shooter was apprehended and later neutralized, it takes quite a bit of time to work your way through to check every inch of these buildings, the offices where the employees are, perhaps the surrounding buildings in the event that they thought that there could be someone else involved. So, it will, while we're still about 3 hours out from the initial call coming in, there's still so much more to do tonight as we see officers still out there working this scene.
Yeah, and we want to drive home the point too that this area of Chicagoland has very good law enforcement cooperation. These people work on task force. Various task forces all the time, and they know each other, and they know each other's tendencies, and they know exactly how reliable each person is. So Dana Kozlov has been interviewing some folks.
Yeah, Rob and Erica, there are still very few people who are right outside the area, outside the Henry Pratt main entrance right now, but I did talk to the son earlier, as you know, of a woman who works inside. The employees are still, no one has left yet. He was saying they weren't sure when they were going to be allowed to leave, though, that some are on the second floor still. They're looking out at us as we talk about them and what is happening inside, and certainly what happened earlier. But according to Jake Simmons, the man I talked to earlier, his mom said they were inside working when they heard shots, a lot of shots. They believe they know who the gunman is, as you have mentioned, but the exact motive, unclear right now. Meantime, these employees were told to head upstairs. There's going to be a meeting, and they would not be allowed to leave until the administration told them they could do so. So that is what they are waiting to do, is a lot of them look out outside. There is still a police presence here, as you well know. But the area is calmer. The scene is much less frantic than it was when we first drove up. Jake Simmons, the man I talked with earlier, is not here right now. He very well could have gone somewhere to warm up, as it is a frigid day out here. But he said he was going to be until his mom was able to leave along with the rest of the employees. So everyone's still on lockdown here, and they're waiting to learn more as well. And of course, as I mentioned, they are also waiting to learn when they can leave the building where the shooting took place a few hours ago.
Dana, thank you. I had a question for you. So I see how close you are to the Henry Pratt building there, and Jake was able to walk right up to you. So from the yellow crime scene tape that we see off to the side, is that area now open to the public? I know the employees are being kept inside, but it seems like some members of the community are able to get pretty close to the scene. Is that the case?
It's hard to say because we came in a back road, and that road appears, at least from where I am right now, to be open. So people can walk down down this sidewalk. Whether or not the yellow police tape goes on beyond my line of sight down Highland here, I don't know. But people, it looks like, have been able to walk up, but maybe only through the back way or through backyards. Beyond that, I can't tell you for sure because we've kind of been locked in position.
I bet you're very
we've been locked into
interested.
position. Sorry.
I bet you're very interested to hear what those workers have to say. And I know it's very cold out there, Dana, as you just referenced there, and a lot of people that are now in a... She just talked about not able to speak until they have been debriefed about what's going on. So, Dana, you've really been able to talk to a lot of interesting people out there, haven't you?
I have. I've talked to a few, but the most, informative was certainly Jake, whose mom is inside. We spoke with him, as I said, just a short time ago, and I wanted to kind of give you and all the viewers an idea of some of the information he told us.
Yeah, Dana, and it's interesting, with those large windows, you're able to see sort of the emotion, the reaction on so many of those workers' faces who were still inside, some of them waving to you at some point. So it seems, to what extent are you getting a sense for, whether there is any fear or if there's relief, just from being in such close proximity to those workers?
It seems to me from the people who are kind of hanging out in that window up there, they seem really calm and they seem pretty relaxed now, but certainly that's just my assumption from afar. I was not inside, obviously. I'm sure they are just hoping they can at some point leave the building, but they do seem to be fairly calm. And as you mentioned earlier, at one point someone waved, sort of acknowledging us. The scene, I'm sure, was also extremely probably terrifying and chaotic earlier. Jake Simmons, who I spoke with, said his mom was on the phone with him during kind of the entire ordeal, and I wanted to share right now some of what he shared with us about what his mom told him.
My mother's worked in there for about 10 years now.
Have you talked to her since all
the whole time?
The whole time. Can you kind of tell me what she was saying to you?
She's just scared. At the moment she said that they heard some shots, so they kind of took cover in a secluded part of the building, and no one really said much. That they know that some of the officers and some of their fellow employees have been shot.
So you were on the phone with her the whole time. What else was going on? Was she saying, were they telling people to take cover?
They telling them to take cover. They didn't really say anything. They said it's an active shooter and that they were on lockdown and not to leave the building.
But they didn't say to go any specific, just they were on lockdown, don't leave the building.
Yeah, don't leave the building. They're letting them roam around free at one point. She was going to get a phone charger. I told her to make sure she stayed with somebody. I'm like, Mom, stay with somebody. It's a very scary moment.
What did you say to her? Were you trying to keep her calm?
Yeah, the whole time. Just relax. That the police will do their job, and if you don't, just stay calm and we'll pray.
Is she hearing who I hate to ask this, but who the shooter, not named, don't name, but who the shooter might be? Is it someone they know inside?
Yeah, she knows him.
She does know him.
She knows him. Yeah, she knows his name and knows who it is, and she knows all the details. I don't want to say anything because it's not an ongoing investigation, but yeah, they're all aware. They knew inside who it was.
Well, we don't want to say any names either, of course, at this point. That would not be the right thing to do at this point, but she knows him. Can you just tell me this? Is this person, is it a man, and is it a current or former employee?
It's a man and current employee who was going to be terminated soon, and she's not surprised.
What's interesting from that discussion I had with Jake is it raises questions about when the shooting began, if it was contained to one area of the building, being that nobody was told to do anything specific except, and according to Jake, that everybody sort of took cover on their own. So the indication possibly that this just was in one part of the building, of course, that is not confirmed. Police will answer a lot of those questions at their 5:30 briefing, and there are a lot of questions. But just to reiterate, the employees here inside the Henry Pratt Company that were inside the building when the shooting took place a few hours ago, still inside, not yet allowed to leave. Rob and Erica.
Dana, that was one of the surprising parts, hearing that they were just kind of walking about and didn't really have any sort of game plan for how to deal with it, but hopefully, all of them are okay. So we want to take you back. Dana, great work as always. This is video from earlier. This is live video right now of the staging area of the Henry Pratt building, but we want to show you some video from earlier when this really went down at about 2:30, and you could see the law enforcement officers gathering right there. And then we saw a little bit later, we saw SWAT team members all congregate, get together, and start walking very slowly behind their shields and their barricades to get in there to try to take on this shooter, who we now know is dead. So this is from earlier this afternoon. You can see the two big staging vehicles right there. This is where all the law enforcement will come. They'll get their marching orders, and they will figure out exactly what is supposed to be done to secure the scene and to make it as safe as possible.
Yes, there were so many different departments there. FBI, ATF, U.S. Marshals, the Kane County Sheriff's, Aurora Police Department, all descending on that scene and mapping out how they wanted to neutralize this shooter, which they did within an hour, hour and a half upon arrival of that scene. And we are looking at the clock here at approximately 25 minutes. This is very fluid, of course, but we were hearing now that at 5:30 there will be a press conference at the Aurora Police Department. That's what you're seeing on the left side of your screen there is reporters, our own Jeremy Ross, and others are getting ready for that press conference. And so hopefully at about 5:30 we will hear from the Aurora Police Chief and perhaps other people as well for those jurisdictions, letting us know an update on the condition of the officers, the status of the civilians that we were hearing that were injured, and more on the shooting suspect. Now, we did speak earlier with Clayton Muhammad. He is a spokesperson for the city of Aurora, and at that time he basically confirmed to us that yes, there were officers shot and they were in stable condition. That was about all he would say at that point in time, in addition to saying that the suspect was neutralized. So, of course, we had many questions for him, and he said that press conference, that's when we will hear more details about this incident. So we're hoping that in about 24 minutes, we will be able to get a lot of those questions answered for you.
And quite frankly, that's when he raised more questions than answered, because he was saying neutralized, and then I was asking him if that meant he was apprehended, which is what the city of Aurora put out at 3 o'clock. And there was some ambiguity there, but Brad Edwards sort of pieced it all together for us that neutralized in this particular instance meant that the shooter was killed, and we reported that about an hour ago as well. But still many questions, and you really want to hear from the police chief here from Aurora, the person leading the investigation. We know that there are a lot of people assisting on this, but that's the person that's leading it. But we also want to hear from those employees that Dana Kozlov is going to talk to once they are free to go from the Henry Pratt building, because they're being interviewed right now by authorities and perhaps even by some of the leadership at Henry Pratt about how to proceed with all this. Tara Molina is joining us now. She's been outside of Mercy Medical Center, I believe. Tara.
Yes, Rob, we're at Mercy Medical Center right now, where we know that staff here were put on high alert when all of this was happening this afternoon, and we do have confirmed at least 2 people are at this hospital. We now know Rush Copley actually just updated us that they've received 3 patients, and we do believe that at least 1 was flown to the Good Samaritan Hospital in Downers Grove. So we're at about 5 people right now, but it's still unclear how many civilians were injured. We know that 4 police officers were injured and they're in stable condition, but still working to confirm how many civilian injuries there were in all of this. Tight security at the hospital right now as we continue to gather more information, Rob.
Okay, thank you, Tara. So that new bit of information, we're not only dealing with Rush Copley and Mercy Medical Center, but someone was flown to Good Samaritan as well. So then taking an influx of patients who are coming from this shooting, whether it is actual shooting injuries or some other injury that happened in the chaos that probably occurred out there, with gunshots being heard. Now, we heard from several witnesses who weren't even in the building at the time, but were going to nearby businesses, restaurants, and could hear that gunfire and could see the law enforcement rushing in. So that also paints a picture for you about just, how many people were impacted by this.
Yeah, and the hospitals too. We mentioned that now they've allowed some of the other employees to leave, but we do know that certainly at Mercy Medical Center, all treatments, people are coming for all sorts of treatments today. I believe they were rescheduled, they were canceled because of the concern about what was going on here. And this is a really great picture you see on your right there. That's the employees talking on the phone, ready, you know, they're, hey, you're on TV, waiting to get out, and hopefully we'll shed some light on what's happened here. But certainly they have gone through a very harrowing day today, having to deal with the trauma of a shooting in their own workplace, and then apparently not really knowing what to do or where to go or that sort of thing. And only recently, once they started being paraded upstairs by the authorities to be interviewed one by one to get the most detailed information. And this is the kind of information that's going to be passed along to the police chief and other authorities who will be able to really give us a good idea as to what happened here. But it will be interesting to talk to those people right there. They're on their phone, they're sitting around sharing stories, and I'm sure they'll have some stories to share with us a little bit later.
And I'm sure there are so many families that are wanting to be reunited with these very workers up here. Also, the civilians, the officers that were taken to the hospital. You know, Tara was mentioning Good Samaritans. That is a level 1 trauma center, and they were airlifted out there. You know, we don't know the status of those patients, but for them to be airlifted to that hospital, I know a lot of questions are going to be coming up in that news conference about the status of those individuals who had to be taken to that hospital. So in addition to these workers here, I know a lot of people may be listening to this, checking social media, wanting to be reunited with their family, their friends, and hopefully, you know, within the next 30 minutes, 20 minutes, we'll be able to get more information about how that may happen tonight and how quickly these employees at the Henry Platt Company will be interviewed and then be allowed to leave and go back to their homes.
Or maybe they're just sitting there, on the phone saying, hey, yeah, I can't go anywhere yet. I'm hoping to get out of here soon, but come pick me up when you can. So the witnesses, as we say, always do such a great job of letting us know what happened from their perspective, and we have some more witness interviews right here.
When it first started happening, can you just describe like what you heard when you saw it?
I kind of heard the shooting, and then like the cars just, like I said, flying by. But yeah, it was pretty much.
Do you think you heard shots from the building?
Kinda, yeah, I kind of heard them. Yeah, because I was sitting down, and since I by myself, I kind of heard.
Can you describe what it sounded like? What you heard?
I just heard like light, really light shooting, but it was like I said, it was really like
Quick. Do you know how many or like it happened?
No, it would happen quickly. Like I said, it was really quickly. Yeah, I just seen everything happening, cars flying by and everything. So it was really happening really quickly. Yeah.
And this is Channel 1 America's continuing coverage of breaking news. It's about 6:16 Eastern Time, and we're continuing to follow breaking news out of a suburb of Chicago, Illinois, this afternoon and evening, where there was apparently a workplace shooting there this afternoon, about 3 hours ago now, about mid-afternoon Eastern Time. Again, where there was a workplace shooting there, and apparently a person went into a business there, a manufacturing company, we understand, and shot several folks. We understand that 4 police officers have been injured, but they are in stable condition at this hour. We're getting conflicting reports about others, or at least how many others were injured in this ordeal this afternoon. But again, a press conference is coming up within the next 15 minutes, we're understanding right now, from the police and officials there, to hopefully give the very latest on that. We know numerous emergency crews were on the scene. Some still remain, especially police officers, as the investigation continues. We do know that it was an active situation, obviously an active shooter situation to begin with, pardon me, but the suspect has been shot dead, according to multiple reports. And again, we'll get the very latest on that too, coming up hopefully momentarily in this presser that we're expecting about 6:30 Eastern Time, 5:30 Central. Again, this is continuing coverage of breaking news from Aurora, Illinois. Let's go back to a local affiliate in the Chicago suburbs there, WBBM in Illinois.
Whatever we know this 40-something male, when he went to work today on this Friday afternoon in Aurora, he brought a gun. Don't know if that was uncommon for him, but seemingly uncommon for most people. He went today with a gun, so seemingly went there knowing something was going to happen. He was going to perpetrate something. And we know he is now deceased. We believe his body may be at the Kane County morgue, and we're going to continue to effort more information on this suspect. But since he is deceased, his version of events will not be known, and what we are waiting to officially find out is the official series of events, and mainly want to hear from those employees that are still there today. The press conference, again, Rob and Erica, as you guys have talked throughout the afternoon, was moved from 5 o'clock to 4:30 to now 5:30. I was told that was in part moved back to 5:30 so that Governor J.B. Pritzker, the newly elected governor, could be there at this press conference. He will be there, and that will be at the Aurora Police Department. 5:30, again, the expected time. Also, it was a fairly remarkable statement from the FOP, the Fraternal Order of Police, the police union today. They sent out a strongly worded and poignantly worded statement. If we want to go back to some scene shots, if I just want to read that. Again, they talked about the four officers. The four officers who were wounded today are members of Aurora FOP Lodge 11, Fraternal Order of Police. From the president there, the president of that union, he said, quote, "Every police officer dreads days like this one, yet these four courageous Aurora police officers and their colleagues did not hesitate to literally put their lives on the line today to stop further bloodshed. These four heroes willingly ran into harm's way to protect their fellow citizens and very nearly paid the ultimate price. We Illinoisans should be humbly grateful for their sacrifice, and we ask that you join us in praying for the injured civilians and police officers and that they make a full and speedy recovery." So 4 injured police officers, stable condition, which is pretty darn good news considering that's much less than critical and much less than serious. Now we are waiting on conditions of the 3+ injured civilians. Back to you guys in the studio.
Okay, Brad, thanks for doing that for us. We appreciate it. And we're going to go to Mike Martinez, the first reporter on the scene this afternoon at the scene of this carnage, and she joins us now with more. Mike.
Erica, it's a much quieter scene out here. This is still the staging area where all the law enforcement has been staging all day. Right now, you can see the flashing lights behind us. They have a couple of command centers set up. We're seeing groups of law enforcement come in to kind of strategize and then go back out. We're also seeing now the Salvation Army has arrived on scene. No doubt it is very cold out here. A lot of these law enforcement officers have been out in these elements for several hours, so they are helping those law enforcement agents, and we keep seeing people come back and forth. And so the scene where everything happened is about a block from where we are at, and there's obviously a large police presence over there. Earlier today, this parking lot that you're looking at live right now was filled with vehicles from every suburban law enforcement that's in this area, as well as Illinois State Police and ATF agents. Some of those undercover vehicles are still out here. When we are making the drive out to Aurora from Chicago, we were being passed every few minutes by an unmarked car with lights and sirens, and they were all heading in this direction. Again, a lot of these law enforcement remain on the scene. Some of the other suburban agencies have returned to their own jurisdictions. We also had a number of ambulances in this parking lot just waiting on standby, because at the time when we arrived, obviously we did not know the number of casualties. We knew that there were multiple casualties, and of course they just wanted to make sure all resources were on hand. At one point when we were driving out, I was talking to a source of mine who works with the emergency responders, and you could hear them calling for ambulances and calling for people to come from home. And that was how dire the situation was at the time when the calls started coming in. And they knew initially that several officers had been injured in this incident. And so obviously the response from the Brothers and Sisters in Blue, as we've always seen when there are officers that are injured, was immense. And it was swarming with police out here. There were even, if I can get Dave to pan around, we haven't seen Chicago police, but as you can look right here, there's actually a couple of Chicago police cars. So that shows you from how far away law enforcement are coming to support the Aurora Police Department in this investigation, and also to support them because of obviously they have several fallen brothers who were injured in this situation. Again, it's a very tense situation out here, but it's calmed down a great deal. There are a lot of people in the neighborhoods with guns when they were looking for this shooter, and now of course it's just making sure all of the people that are still in that facility are safe, and we of course are waiting to hear from them. Rob and Erica, back to you.
Okay, Mai, thank you for your perspective, being out there when it was at the height of the incident today and then showing us exactly how some of that is tapered off, although there is still a police presence. Now we look again at the site of the upcoming press conference. We're at 5:20 now. It's scheduled for 5:30, and you see it there on the left side of the screen. This is at Aurora Police headquarters, the Aurora Police Department, and shortly there we should be hearing from the police chief. We have our reporter Jeremy Ross right there ready to ask questions and to listen in, and as soon as they are ready and willing to answer those questions, we will bring that to you live right here on CBS Chicago.
So you're probably wondering as you tune into the 5 o'clock news, or we're trying to watch Judge Judy earlier, what's going on. And if you've stayed with us for any period of time, that you know that there was a very serious shooting at the Henry Pratt Company in Aurora earlier this afternoon. Several officers injured, several people injured as well. One person dead right now that we believe to be the shooter. Are there any other fatalities? We do not know, but this is why this news conference that's coming up in the next couple of minutes is going to be very insightful, because there are still a lot of questions that remain unanswered. So 1:45 this afternoon or so in Aurora, this is when it all went down. By 3 o'clock, the suspect was said to be apprehended, and then we later found out neutralized, which meant he was killed by authorities, or perhaps turned the gun on himself. We don't even know how that happened, but we know he is no longer a threat. He is since passed, and we also can tell you that there were soft and hard lockdowns all over the community there, at other businesses, at homes, at schools in District 129, and once the situation was under control, that's when these lockdowns were no longer necessary.
So many of those parents were able to get to their students just within the last hour and a half, and so they're being reunited, a sense of normalcy coming back to some of the companies in the surrounding area, but still those workers at the Henry Pratt Company are being held there, being questioned by investigators. Our Dana Klossoff was right outside the building, where you could see many of them in the window on their phone, acknowledging our presence, and yet still waiting until they can be released. So while those lockdowns at other businesses have been lifted, of course, there is a lot in this investigation that requires law enforcement to meticulously look at that complex and speak to all those witnesses. Now, I was mentioning earlier that the White House said that President Donald Trump was briefed on this matter, and now, just within the last 10 minutes or so, the president has tweeted this: "Great job by law enforcement in Aurora, Illinois. Heartfelt condolences to all of the victims and their families. America is you." That coming from President Trump, and we've seen a lot of our local leaders as well weighing on this. Our senators, the governor, who we're hearing will be a part of this press conference coming up here in about 30 minutes, Governor J.B. Pritzker, and also hearing from some of the local congressmen and women. So a lot of people with their eyes on this, and there you saw a tweet from the president as well, sending condolences to our area, the Chicago area, Aurora in particular.
Yeah, and this probably comes as no surprise, but Aurora authorities, fire department people who may not have been working today. Everybody was all hands on deck. These people got called in at the last minute if they were not working a shift or if they were off for this particular day to assist those, because all the people that were working were all focused on that staging area right there that you see on your right. That's where everybody went earlier. Both fire department, police department, authorities from all over, from other counties, from federal. Everybody was there to assist in this matter. And we should also say it was sort of interesting to know that there are patients at Rush Copley and patients at Mercy Medical Center as well. And somebody